Recently, the animal trading market in the south of Blackhawk City had become more boisterous. Compared to before when only the places which sold pets were lively, nowadays, the horse trading area became more bustling as many people in Blackhawk City started to consider their private carriages. Besides, the Norman Empire's hierarchical system became increasingly more accepted and started to influence people's daily lives from all aspects. In this animal trading market, recently a news spread that the horse trading area would be separated from the animal trading market. This was because someone wanted to invest into a bigger and more senior horse trading market to satisfy the demands of some people in Blackhawk City in the future. In the Norman Empire, with the exception of army and public traffic, only soldiers could be allowed to use private vehicles in public areas. As many rich people and businessmen in Blackhawk City were only commoners, once the military control came to an end, they could only put away their private cars at home. Some were sorrowful inside while stud farm bosses and farmers who bred a bit some horses in the surrounding farms all looked very satisfied. There were several stud farms in Blackhawk City, which all had a booming business these days. At the same time, those farmers who knew how to breed horses, drive carriages, and take care of horses became in demand. This meant that many farmers who could only do farm work in the farmland would get an opportunity to work downtown. If those rich commoners who could only have carriages wanted to have a carriage, they had to hire at least 2 workers, 1 driver, and 1 hostler. Besides, they had to buy at least 2 strong horses and customize a carriage that met the requirements of the Norman Empire. Additionally, they had to build a horse stable at home and spend money on taking care of the horses every day. Driving a carriage is more complicated than driving a car. Therefore, many people who prepared to change their method of transportation became resentful. However, even if they were unwilling, they could only do it as they dared not show their dissatisfaction at all. That indicated just how strict the hierarchical system of the Norman Empire was. Even all the businessmen in the entire Norman Empire dared not oppose it, not to mention some independent businessmen. So even if there were people who were dissatisfied with this change in Blackhawk City, more people were happy about it. Actually, the amount of the latter far surpassed that of the former. If you wanted to use a private car, the solution was simple and transparent. Once you made enough contributions to the Norman Empire and became a soldier, you might have a chance to get a private car. If a businessman wanted to be a soldier of the Norman Empire, even the lowest rank, parasol leaf soldier, the lowest threshold would also take you at least 1,600 gold coins taxation or donation. The soldiers of the Norman Empire were divided into 7 ranks. The lowest rank was parasol leaf soldier, above which were respectively oak leaf soldier, maple leaf soldier, pine needle soldier, and 3 senior soldier ranks, lilac soldier, rosebush soldier, and rose soldier. Each soldier rank enjoyed different rights on all aspects. The oak leaves on Zhang Tai's military officer certificate indicated that he was in the oak leaf rank, which brought him a treatment of a second lieutenant. In the Norman Empire, soldiers who sacrificed themselves for their country could always win more respect than those who only donated gold coins. If a businessman who had become a parasol leaf soldier, the lowest soldier rank, through legal taxation or donation wanted to be further promoted, besides several times higher taxation and donations, he had to meet several stricter requirements. For instance, he should not have a criminal record. Additionally, he had to be a model of high morality in the society. He should be enthusiastic about doing social benefit activities and be generous in helping others. After reaching these rigidly quantitative requirements, he should also collect the signatures of at least 300 commoners of the Norman Empire and pass the investigation of the Imperial Order Investigation Committee before became an oak leaf soldier. Oak leaf soldiers had more rights than parasol leaf soldiers. The lowest level officials of the Norman Empire would be chosen at least from oak leaf soldiers or direct line descendants of families composed of oak leaf soldiers. Commoners and parasol leaf soldiers were not qualified to be officials of the Norman Empire. The hierarchical system was a set of rigid fundamental laws for ruling a country. Through hundreds of years' practice, this foundation of the Norman Empire was becoming more powerful and firm. The book, The Charter of Orders, was published by the Imperial Order Investigation Committee of the Norman Empire, which was the legal document on introducing the ruling foundation of the Norman Empire. This book was most discussed in Blackhawk City these days as it had become the bestseller in bookstores. Sitting before his own stall, Zhang Tai heard some guys who were also selling items nearby discussing this hottest topic. After it came the speculations about the escalating friction and battles between the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty in Kala region. From those guys' discussion, Zhang Tai learned that it was the 7 families of the Coal, Iron, and Steel Federation who had coordinated with the Norman Empire to realize a peaceful liberation of Blackhawk City. As a reward, the clan elders of the 7 families would be rewarded the status of rosebush soldiers of the Norman Empire. As for Zhang Tai himself, because he had formed the Ironblood hidden strength, he was recruited by Colonel Leibniz to join the Ironblood camp and luckily became one of the first 8 natives who were rewarded with soldier rank in Blackhawk City during the military control period. Although he was only a low-rank oak leaf soldier, it was already great enough. On the carpet before Zhang Tai were several bamboo cages which contained golden wangs. He had bought them from some kids in the early morning when he came here. There were more than 30 wangs, which had cost Zhang Tai 12 silver coins. Golden wang was a very cute beetle. Male wangs had a huge horn on their heads, which made them adorable. Zhang Tai had also caught 2 in a tree he used to play when he was young. This kind of beetle was not expensive. However, it was not easy to catch a live one. It would take you some time to catch them. Those 11 to 12 old kids living in the farms outside Blackhawk City were very excited about catching them as a part-time job. Zhang Tai sat in front of his stall with his eyes on the wangs in the cages before him while waiting for the arrival of Samira, that bastard. This time, Zhang Tai looked like a 20-odd pioneer in common clothes which looked a bit old. Besides them, he wore a summer hat and was leaning lazily against a banyan tree with a grass stem in his mouth. At the sight of him, people would know that he was just a sorehead. At noon, Samira finally arrived, followed by 2 tough bodyguards. Samira circled around the market with only over 30 golden wangs collected. This quantity could not meet today's mission, so he became a bit anxious. Each time he would get benefits from buying these live creatures. Once he could accomplish the task, Master Abayan would not mind giving him a bit of reward. However, if he could not accomplish the task, he was not brave enough to face Master Abayan's fury. What Samira feared most was to make Master Abayan think he was useless and start to become dissatisfied with him. While his anxiousness continued to grow, he caught sight of that 20-odd youth, Zhang Tai's disguise, and the golden wangs that were put in a bamboo cage on the ground. When he arrived in front of Zhang Tai, he didn't even ask him about the price before ordering a tough guy to take that cage containing wangs and throw the beetles into a larger cage in that tough man's hand. "What are you doing?" Zhang Tai asked in a low-pitched voice with a furious expression, spitting off his grass stem. "I want all of your golden wangs." Casting a glance at Zhang Tai's clothes, Samira showed a contemptuous expression. "You want to take it away without even asking the price?" Zhang Tai asked. "Ah." Samira gave a cold harumph and stared at Zhang Tai like seeing a rustic. "Are you here for the first time? Don't you know who I am?" "I don't care who you are, if you want my commodities, you have to pay." "Of course I will pay." Saying this, Samira took out several silver coins from the inside of his coat and threw them to Zhang Tai. After that, he turned back and walked away, followed by 2 tough guys. Only after a few steps, Zhang Tai had already caught up with them. "You only paid me 8 silver coins, that's not enough. My golden wangs deserve at least 16 silver coins." Hearing this, Samira and the 2 tough men turned back at the same time. "Brat, I've given you face and you should take it. Only I am collecting golden wangs in Blackhawk City. Only kids would play with these animals. I've already given you face by paying you 8 silver coins." Samira's face instantly became solemn. Zhang Tai threw the 8 silver coins back to Samira. "Here are your silver coins, give me back my golden wangs, 23 in total, I will not sell them." Samira didn't catch Zhang Tai's silver coins but cast a glance at a tough guy beside him. When Zhang Tai stretched out his hand to grab that cage in Samira's cage, the tough men directly pushed him several steps back, forcing him down on the ground. "Brat, if you keep being this stupid, I will beat you up. Hurriedly take the silver coins and roll out of here." Samira swore. After that, he turned back and left while the 2 tough men gesticulated with their fists at Zhang Tai. Seeing the argument, many people moved close to Zhang Tai. "Brat, never mind it, those people are collecting wangs for Master Abayan. You cannot offend him. Take the silver coins from the ground and leave as soon as possible," some kind-heart man started to persuade him. Dumbfounded, Zhang Tai sat on the ground for a while, seemingly having been greatly wronged. After that, he suddenly shouted loudly and jumped up from the ground. He then chased after Samira. On the way there, he pulled out of a shiny dagger from inside his coat which really scared the surrounding people. They had never imagined that Zhang Tai was that righteous. What happened next was too fast. The moment Samira heard Zhang Tai's shout did he saw Zhang Tai rushing towards him with a dagger in hand. In a split second, Zhang Tai thrust his dagger directly into Samira's heart. Afterwards, he grabbed his cage and escaped immediately. Not until Zhang Tai was more than 10 meters away did the 2 muscled men following Samira understand what had happened. At the sight of Samira's fallen body in this quick manner, they immediately rushed after Zhang Tai. Zhang Tai kept running towards a hill in the south of Blackhawk City. He ran so fast that after chasing him for less than 50 m, the 2 tough men, running with gritted teeth, saw his shadow far off in the distance, which then quickly disappeared in the woods. The two tough men also entered the woods and searched for quite a while, but were not able to find even a hair of Zhang Tai. They could only dejectedly return to that place where Samira had been assassinated. After such a long period, Samira no longer had any signs of life on him. When they rushed off to chase after Zhang Tai, the onlookers immediately left, not even casting a second glance at Samira, who was lying on the ground. Everybody felt that he had deserved that. Seeing the two tough guys coming back with disgruntled looks, many people in the market even became happy. Samira, that bastard should have long died. That's it, that Chinese youth runs so fast and has such a righteous morality. I heard that none of the Chinese of the Norman Empire are easily offended. Of course, some bastards would behave better than that. Among all the onlookers in the market, only a local snake's face turned pale when he caught sight of the dead Samira lying on the ground. From the onlookers' discussions, he already knew that the one who had killed Samira was the very Chinese youth who had asked him where Samira was in the morning by paying him several silver coins. However, at this moment, he would never admit that someone had asked him about Samira's whereabouts. This was just a fight arisen from an unfair deal. That's it. I haven't seen that Chinese youth before, never have seen him before. It's so pathetic to see such a murder in this market. That man told himself this twice inside. Soon, a sheriff came to the market to investigate the present scene. He recorded the cause of Samira's death and how the murder had happened. Murder was a great case. It took the sheriff over 1 hour to finish this. Finally, he let the two muscled men carry away Samira's body. According to witnesses' descriptions, the murderer was a 20-odd Chinese pioneer. Nobody knew his name, where he came from, where he lived, or whether he had some partners or friends. From the descriptions of the onlookers, even that killer's look became weird. Additionally, the moment that killer murdered Samira, he ran away. Nobody knew whether he would come back to Blackhawk City or not. For such a case, nobody would be interested in investigating it. Actually, they didn't even have time to search for him in the wild. At most, the sheriffs would warn their counterparts in Blackhawk City to pay attention to whether there were 20-odd Chinese pioneers who met these descriptions. Soon after Samira's body was carried back into the luxurious castle-like manor beside the Levian Lake, Master Abayan, who enjoyed a great reputation in Blackhawk City, learned that Samira was killed. Chapter 202, Master Abayan. Translator, WQL Editor, Dark Gem. As the only grey-robe alchemist in a small area like Blackhawk City, of course Master Abayan was qualified to be called a master. Being different from the senile image that many people had about masters, although Master Abayan was over 50 years old, because of good maintenance, he looked much younger than his real age. With a 30-odd man's look, Master Abayan featured the charms of a mature man. Younger appearance seemed to be a common feature among alchemists. All of them tended to look much younger than their real age. Master Abayan was such a person who would be recognized as an alchemist the moment you saw him. A 50-odd grey-robe alchemist was already excellent achievement, although not a genius in the world of alchemists. Similar to the hierarchical system of the Norman Empire, alchemists also had many ranks like herbal medicine apprentice, knapsack physician, suspended gourd alchemist, girdling alchemist, and grey-robe alchemist. Master Abayan was on the brilliant 5th stage in the alchemist's world. Although there were many more brilliant stages after the 5th stage, this status was already enough for him to obtain the respect and good treatment from the rulers of any country across Black's Inhuman clan corridor. In Alchemist's world, everything could only be accumulated through time and experience. There was no shortcut to success in the Alchemist's world. Additionally, because all alchemists could live longer than commoners, a 50-odd alchemist was like a 20-odd fighter who was rightly in his heyday with a bright future. In the castle-style manner of Master Abayan, he would most commonly stay in two places. One was his pharmacy, and the other was his medical pills room. These days, Master Abayan spent most of his time in his medical pills room as he was trying his best in studying a magical medicament that could help him rise to the next stage. It was a LV4 magical medicament, primary strength medicament. Based on his abilities as a grey-robe alchemist, he didn't dream about making such a great medicament at once, but a further study of it had benefited him a lot. He was ready to climb to the peak step by step. His status as a grey-robe alchemist and his deep relationships that had been built in the past years made his influence deep-rooted in Blackhawk City. However, if he could make further progress, his influence would not be limited to the Blackhawk City but spread to the entire Brunswick province of the Norman Empire. This would be of great help to his further plans. Master Abayan was bored by making low-level medicaments in a remote area like Blackhawk City all day long so as to get acquainted with those rustic landowners who only knew how to get gold coins by digging mines and make women pregnant. Because of a reason that he would not expose to anyone, Master Abayan felt that his physical strength was increasing right now along with his spirit. This brought him great confidence to challenge a higher and more brilliant stage in the alchemist's world. The direction he chose to study and break through was primary strength medicament, the most attractive medicament among those of LV4. As a grey-robe alchemist, Master Abayan had mastered many secret knowledge systems that could only be known by alchemists. Therefore, he knew many secrets that other commoners didn't know, including the secret of the attractive primary strength medicament, which was related to golden wangs. This was alchemists' secret knowledge. Common wangs could only lift objects that were more than 1,200 times heavier than its own weight at most. However, after mutation, they could lift objects that were more than 1,800 times heavier than their own weight. They were well-known kings of strength among the Mother Nature's creations. Even before the catastrophe, when human beings' science and technology were very developed and some crazy guys even clamored to enter the universe, people could only decipher less than 3% of their own genes. However, the 3% of human genes that had been deciphered were over 95% similar to that of wangs and over 99% similar to that of other mammals. This knowledge had been grasped by people before the catastrophe. Today, this knowledge was still of great use to alchemists. The alleged primary strength medicament was a kind of medice that contained a certain strength from Wang's genes that granted Wang's great strength. It could also work a bit on human body by activating a small part of some human genes which were related to strength, which drove people mad. It didn't increase people's physical strength by over 1,000 times, that would be too crazy and could only be made by God. If a vial of primary strength medicament made by alchemists could allow a person to increase his lifting strength by 3 to 5 times that of his own strength, namely adding 300 to 400 kilograms strength, and help the person radine it for several hours, that would already be enough to drive people mad. Primary strength medicament was very expensive, which also drove people very mad. However, the most critical materials required by this kind of medicament were only those common golden wangs, a mutated beetle that could be seen everywhere. Although common wangs could also be used to make this kind of medicament, that could only be done by alchemists of higher rank. As an alchemist who was expecting a further promotion, Master Abayan had a greater chance to succeed by using mutated golden wangs to study the primary strength medicament. These days, Master Abayan had used up hundreds of golden wangs in his medical pills room. Those wangs had struggled and disappeared in weird bubbling liquids of different colors. Today, Master Abayan made some interesting experiments in his medical pills room and gained a further understanding on how to make primary strength medicament. This made him very happy. However, Master Abayan started to become gloomy when he heard that there was no more golden wangs in the medical pills room. Are you saying that Samira, who was responsible for collecting golden wangs for me, was murdered? Are you saying that there's no golden wangs for my experiments anymore? Master Abayan asked with an emotionless face, looking at a terrified steward of his castle. The steward's face immediately turned pale and he almost lowered his head to the ground. After learning of this news, I've dispatched 3 groups of people to collect golden wangs in emergency. I'm sure they will soon come back. After closing his eyes for several seconds, Master Abayan opened his eyes. Is that killer a Chinese youth called Zhang Tai? No, I heard it was a 20-odd Chinese youth. Did anyone know him? No. Was this 20-odd Chinese youth acting alone? Was he a strange face in Black Hot City? Had he appeared in the animal trading area before? Master Abayan asked. Yes. The steward looked at Master Abayan with a pair of amazed eyes, expressing great awe to this man. Seeing the steward's eyes, Master Abayan revealed a wisp of smile on his lip corner. Do you think it's very difficult for a person to change his face? Do I need to report this to Colonel Leibniz with a letter signed by you? The steward asked, his voice lowered. No need, I will not care whether Samira died or not. Even if the killer was Zhang Tai, as he has considered to change his look before dealing with his personal grudge with Samira, it means that he doesn't want to offend me. No need to find more trouble. Arrange a new manager for purchasing medicinal materials for me. After saying this, Master Abayan slightly flicked his hands towards the steward. For Master Abayan, this was just a trivial thing and it was unnecessary for him to take revenge for a small figure like Samira. The steward then received the order. I don't want to be interrupted. Master Abayan said. As you wish, I will make so, but Ms. Gina, who wants to buy youth water, had been here waiting for you for half an hour in the parlor. She was invited by the young miss from Gregory family. Will you go to the parlor or? If so, no need to be that complicated, I can also gain tranquility in the parlor. Yes, sir. Under the guidance castle's steward, Master Abayan went to the parlor in the side hall of the second floor after a short while. After opening the gate for Master Abayan, the steward then closed it respectfully and exited. In a baroque skirt, a beautiful 30-odd woman was lazily sitting on the sofa. She was holding a white folding fan while a great part of her plump breasts exposed. Her figure was enchanting, while her skin was as white as snow. "Do you want to buy youth water?" Master Abayan asked as he walked over to her. "Yes, the young MS of Gregory introduced me to here. She says you have a very special youth water which can be directly injected into women's bodies. Besides keeping beauty, it can also cure loneliness," Miss Gina said, face blushed. Afterwards, she sat up slightly straighter, exposing the curves of her breasts in a more perfect way. Master Abayan revealed a smile while his eyes radiated shiny lights. "Then please stand up, I will inject the youth water for you now." Miss Gina stood up from the sofa. "Beautiful MS, please turn back and lie down on the sofa with your hands supporting your body. Meanwhile, remember to raise your butt, this pose should not be difficult for you." Miss Gina then obediently turned back and made the pose. It was a very alluring pose for any man. "The first time I inject youth water for you might make you uncomfortable. It might be a bit painful. Afterwards, when you get used to it, you might want an injection or two every week. The young MS of Gregory family said that your injector is very huge." Miss Gina gasped out. "Yes, MS, you will soon enjoy it. Please take off your skirt. Yeah, like this, show me your butt. There's another obstacle on you. If you can take off your sling underwear or push it away and show me the place where I need to inject you, I would be very happy to do that. This would help me inject youth water into your body in a much smoother way." Master Abayan had already pulled away his robe and taken out his grim and huge injector that was used to inject youth water. Miss Gina did it according to Master Abayan's requirements. When she took off her underwear and touched that huge and hard injector of Master Abayan behind her, she exclaimed immediately. She had seen so many injectors, however, that was definitely the biggest one that she had seen. She would not even be able to hold it with one hand. Such a huge injector might be more suitable to a mare. "MS, the injector is ready." Master Abayan had already put it next to the place where he wanted to inject the youth water in. He started to slightly rub it on the place. Miss Gina felt so stimulated that she started to quiver all over. When the needle of the injector enters your body, you might feel a bit painful the first time. "When I inject it for you, please don't struggle or move. Can I press your waist with one of my hands? I know, as a medic, if I touch your beautiful body without your prior consent, it will be impolite and a bit profane to you." "Fine." Miss Gina panted. Receiving her consent, Master Abayan placed his powerful left hand on the hip bone of Miss Gina's waist. "MS, if you are ready, please treat yourself as a rutting female dog and bark twice when I can inject it for you. During the process, if it is too painful, you can also bark twice. This way, you can feel less scared. I will also make it less painful by pushing in the injector a bit slower and gentler. I've already checked it just now. If you want to be cured, you have to receive injections in 2 places. During the first time, I can tap your potential, while the second time, I will complete the real deep treatment for you," Master Abayan righteously said. "Woof, woof," Miss Gina, who looked very noble, barked twice, face blushed. It was then soon followed by a distant and sharp bark. In the next hour, the barks drifted in the parlor one after another at different rhythms. The moment Master Abayan pushed in the injector, he raised his head and looked at the ceiling. He didn't focus on Miss Gina, who was quivering all over and could not even stand steadily. Instead, he was gazing at a grain on the ceiling, seemingly wanting to see through the ceiling of the parlor. At this moment, Master Abayan was very tranquil inside as he was seriously thinking about something. Could a person really be able to resist the toxicity of blue frost after being struck by a lightning bolt? Could a person really easily form iron-blood hidden strength after being struck by a lightning bolt? That person was really more interesting than Golden Wangs. At such a solemn and critical moment, if Zhang Tai knew that Master Abayan was still silently thinking of him, he would have definitely been left dumb while cramping and spitting white foam. He might have even crashed himself into the wall, losing his mind. Thankfully, Zhang Tai didn't know. Chapter 203, Improvements in the Castle of Black Iron. Zhang Tai didn't know what had happened in the animal trading market and Master Abayan's castle-style manor. According to his plan, after killing Samira with his dagger, his running speed could even match that of a sprinting wild wolf. The 2 bodyguards beside Samira were left far behind him in only several seconds. They could not even catch the flying dust that had been left by Zhang Tai. Zhang Tai kept running towards south of Blackhot City before turning to the west. He picked remote areas with few people and made a big circle in the wild. Half an hour later, having run over 30 kilometers, Zhang Tai stood in the woods over 10 kilometers away from Blackhot City, on its west side. He liked to run. He liked that feeling of being as free as the wind. This time, after killing Samira, he made another round to simply enjoy the cool feeling of running. Zhang Tai felt that each of his pores from his head to toes were cool. After stopping in the wild woods, he burst out laughing loudly. After looking around to ensure that nobody was near him, he took off his coat, wig, and face mask. As it was too uncomfortable to take the coat and the wig in his hands, Zhang Tai directly threw them off. As for the face mask, Zhang Tai folded it and rubbed it into a ball before foisting it into his pocket. According to Donder, this kind of memory-based face mask would recover its original look when you sprayed water on it, no matter how crumpled it was, as long as didn't torn. After doing this, the moment Zhang Tai wanted to leave, he noticed that Samira's cage containing golden wangs had been carried all the way here and was lying on the ground after a trip of tens of kilometers. Squatting down, Zhang Tai opened the cage and poured out the golden wangs. There were 56 golden wangs of different sizes inside the cage. They were actually adorable and had a nice color. Today, I completed my revenge and save your lives. From today on, you should remember to be clever and not be so easily caught by people. Some golden wangs clumsily tried to turn back by standing on the ground. Zhang Tai then took them up and put them on a nearby tree trunk. Released out of the cage, all the golden wangs instantly escaped in all directions. He didn't know whether they had understood his words, but Zhang Tai felt that some golden wangs were nodding to him when they left. Some, having climbed several steps forward, even looked back at their savior. Zhang Tai's mom said that every creature had its spirit. It seemed true. Seeing those small creatures being released and gaining freedom, Zhang Tai also felt set free. He had never had this cool sense of having achieved his revenge before. It was like drinking icy plum syrup in the hot of summer and having many beauties warm up the bed for you in cold winter. Zhang Tai felt that a dauntless man should act like this. As long as nobody had witnessed him killing Samira, even if Master Abayan doubted the randomness of it, he could do nothing to Zhang Tai. Soon after this event was solved, Zhang Tai felt that even if he would soon be dispatched to Kalar, he would also feel much more reassured about his family members and friends in Blackhot City. After all, without chopping off his Samira's, that villain's, a poisonous snake's, head, you didn't know when he would jump out of his hiding place and bite you or your loved ones. At noon, Zhang Tai returned to Blackhot City through the West City Gate. Soon after he entered the city, he saw a bald tough guy with a killing chi in the uniform of the first lieutenant of the Norman Empire passing by him in a car. Zhang Tai hurriedly shouted out, "Officer Frio." With a sound of G, the Mountain Cat branded military SUV braked. The tough man who was driving and two soldiers on the SUV turned back at the same time and caught sight of Zhang Tai, who was walking on the road in plain clothes. "Zhang Tai." First Lieutenant Frio swiftly jumped off the vehicle and came to stand in front of Zhang Tai. The moment he wanted to give him a punch on the shoulder, he realized something and hurriedly stopped. "How are your wounds?" "Much better. The air outside Blackhot City is fresh. It's beneficial to my recuperation, so I came out for a walk." Zhang Tai casualilit. After that, he looked at a pile of crates containing military materials in the vehicle. "How's the camp now?" "The division has already sent an order. 3 days later, Iron Blood Camp will drive to Kalar as the vanguard of No. 39 Division. Now that the Kalar situation is escalating, our frontier troops are in shortage. Skirmishes under the scale of battalions and regiments would occur over 10 times each day. That region is becoming more and more bloody." Although having long predicted the coming of this day, when he heard the news from First Lieutenant Frio, Zhang Tai's heart still pounded. In the blink of an eye, the battles between two great countries had come so close to him. It happened earlier than Zhang Tai had predicted. Taking a glance at him, First Lieutenant Frio felt regretful and comforted Zhang Tai. "Based on your wounds, you might not be able to join this battle in Kalar. You just recuperate in Blackhot City, hope we can have a chance to see each other again." After patting Zhang Tai's shoulders, First Lieutenant Frio jumped back into his Mountain Cat SUV and drove away out of Zhang Tai's vision. After standing there for a while, Zhang Tai started to run. He controlled his speed while running past the avenues of Blackhot City, not making it too shocking. He only kept his speed at that of someone chasing after a thief once he realized that his purse had been stolen. Zhang Tai kept running toward his apartment on Avenue Monet. In the following 2 days, he only left once, returning with 2 sacks of various fruits and a barrel of honey that he could buy in the Blackhot City. He then totally immersed himself in the reconstruction of the Castle of Black Iron. 2 days later, 3 artificial buildings stood in the Castle of Black Iron. 2 of them were single-story log cabins numbered 3A80, while the other was an independent double-story log cabin numbered 3B90. All the 3 buildings were purchased from Home of the Wild, and because of them, the entire Castle of Black Iron seemed to be more lively. The 3 log cabins had tangerine roofs and tan walls, making them look very beautiful and delicate. Because they were designed and built in modules, the shapes of these log cabins were different from that of common residences. They looked more like woodhouses of elves or dwarves from fairy tales. Whether it was styles or designs, they were all simple and chic, full of natural colors and good craftsmanship. After being built up, the log cabins looked more beautiful than in the photos. From now on, Zhang Tai had his own grain warehouse and biological lab. All the purchased grains were divided into 2 single-story log cabins. In his lab, Zhang Tai started the fermentation using his first batch of basic aura yeast fluid. This fermentation process required water, mountain spring water from the castle of black iron, fruits, honey, and sugar, all of which had been well prepared by Zhang Tai. Like how he had fermented yeast fluid numerous times at home, he fermented almost 300 kilograms yeast fluid. Being sour and sweet, this was his favorite drink when he was young. Sadly, he couldn't drink too much at home as it was meant for fermenting the rice brew. This time, however, Zhang Tai promised himself to make enough yeast fluid to be able to drink it whenever he wanted in the future. Besides that, he also left a vial of basic aura yeast fluid in the lab so as to start its second mutation and evolution. Zhang Tai input aura value points inside like how he had done to those bees. No matter how many times he would have to try and whether he would succeed or not, he would never feel loss for those aura value points as they were produced every day. After doing these things in the castle of black iron, in the afternoon, a day before the Iron Blood camp would leave for the Kala region, Zhang Tai walked out of his apartment on Avenue Monet in unexpected high spirits in tidy military uniform and boots along with his military officer's long sword. Zhang Tai went back home first, accompanying his parents to kill time in the afternoon. During the supper, he told them that the Iron Blood camp would drive to Kalar for a big fight. His mom started crying, and the atmosphere at home became very depressing. Although Zhang Tai tried to improve it, even dad and elder brother's smiles looked very reluctant. His mom continued to add dishes into his bowl, so he lowered his head and just engulfed whatever she gave him. It was not easy to fight Sun Dynasty's brilliant feathers. The fight that Zhang Tai was going to experience would be more dangerous and cruel than what his martyr bastard eldest brother had experienced. Sun Dynasty's army was known across the entire Blackson human clan corridor for its savageness. After supper, elder sister-in-law put away the bowls and chopsticks and went to the kitchen. Zhang Tai brought his dad and mom to the chairs in the parlor. After that, he bowed in front of them 3 times, making a loud sound, dong, dong, dong. Although his dad didn't drop tears at supper, he burst out crying now too. Zhang Tai stood up and revealed a smile. Dad and Mom, don't worry, I'll be back alive. Until I bring you hundreds and thousands of descendants, I will not die. You've given me a good name. I'll be as indestructible as iron. Zhang Yang then accompanied Zhang Tai out and walked with him for a long distance. Zhang Tai, that money? They are clean. It's Gregory family's compensation to me. The moment his elder brother opened his mouth, Zhang Tai knew what he wanted to say. Before departing, he tightly grasped his elder brother's hands. We brothers should not care about these things. Because it's chaotic everywhere, as long as I leave Blackhot City, you will hardly get any news about me. In the future, if I don't come back in half a year, you should take the money and leave Blackhot City together with Dad, Mom, and elder sister and go to the Eastern Continent. Then, you should look after our parents well. Saying that, Zhang Tai took out that resin card with holes on it and gave it to his elder brother. When you arrive at the Eastern Continent, you should go find Donder and he will arrange everything for you. Zhang Yang's eyes turned red while he forcefully grabbed Zhang Tai's shoulder with one of his hands, tears sliding down his cheeks. Zhang Yang was also a soldier, of course he knew what would happen battlefields. In such a great war, no matter how strong a person was, nobody would dare to pat their chest and swear that they could come back alive. Zhang Yang knew that what Zhang Tai had talked at home was only to comfort Dad and Mom. The real truth was what he was saying now. Can't you just not go there? Zhang Yang asked it. In Zhang family, only he knew that Zhang Tai was still on his sick leave. He had suffered a heavy wound along with a rare poison. As only a few days had passed since he was given the sick leave, Zhang Tai had reason to not go. If he didn't appear tomorrow, he then would be able to avoid joining this war. Actually, the Iron Blood camp and the No. 39 division which knew Zhang Tai's latest situation had seen that Zhang Tai hadn't reported to the Iron Blood camp. This indicated that he would not be coming there tomorrow as well. As Zhang Tai's elder brother, Zhang Yang sincerely wished for him not to go there. When there was an assassination attempt on my life, all the brothers of the Iron Blood camp immediately set out and surrounded the residence of Gregory family in order to avenge me. So this time, I have to be there even if to face a mountain of swords. Zhang Yang sighed. He knew Zhang Tai's personality very well. Sometimes, although his brother was a bit cynical, he was very righteous. Donder had only looked after him for 2 years, yet he didn't hesitate to give him the mental arithmetic by abacus. If the whole Iron Blood camp could sacrifice themselves for him, then he could also sacrifice himself for the whole Iron Blood camp. This was Zhang Tai. I have several brothers and women in Blackhot City, elder brother, you must have seen them. I mean Barley, Pandora. If I cannot come back in the future, when you leave, if you are able to look after them, you'd better give them a hand. Zhang Yang solemnly nodded. After that, the two brothers bade farewell to each other. Zhang Yang then saw off Zhang Tai, watching as he disappeared at the end of an avenue. After finishing with his home affairs, Zhang Tai let out a deep sigh. He then came to Fatty Barley's home. When he saw his friend, he had also just finished his supper. Beneath the building where Barley lived, Zhang Tai told him that he would leave for Kalar with the Iron Blood camp tomorrow. Under Barley's shocking gaze, Zhang Tai gave him a key. This is a safe that I rented out in the Golden Rock Bank of Blackhot City today. The number is 1067. I've put something there, as well as a letter for you. When I leave, you can go get the things inside the safe together with Doug and the other brothers. After being silent for a while, Barley took Zhang Tai's key. Will you bid farewell to Doug and the other brothers? No need, I cannot stand men crying in front of me, it feels like bidding farewell to a dead body. I prefer women to do that in front of me. Bursting out laughing, Zhang Tai tightly embraced Barley. Good luck, bro. After waving his hand to Barley, he turned back and disappeared in the darkness. Chapter 204, Agreement. After leaving home, Zhang Tai went to the orphanage founded by Grandma Teresa. He donated 200 gold coins to the orphanage. This was the largest amount of donation that the orphanage had ever gained since it was founded. When Zhang Tai left, all the kids in the orphanage sang the hymn of the Guardian God School and saw Zhang Tai off, while Grandma Teresa kissed his forehead. In the eyes of the kids of the orphanage, Zhang Tai was absolutely the only sage besides Grandma Teresa. After this donation, Zhang Tai became penniless again with only several gold coins left. Tonight, the 84 girls in Blackhot City all received well-packaged exquisite gift boxes that Zhang Tai had the boutique stores send to them. Each of them received a beautiful fresh flower, a set of Miss Dis underclothes, and a set of jewelry from Milan Jewelry Store. On each greeting card, Zhang Tai wrote down a line of words. XXX, I will leave Blackhot City tomorrow, thanks for bringing me pleasure. I will remember you forever. Please forgive me for being not able to give you more, Zhang Tai. During this period, in the 7 to 8 days edification and education by the beauties of the Rose Association, Zhang Tai finally became a half-fashionable man who started to know about various fashionable and interesting places in Blackhot City from a rustic who didn't know how to enjoy himself at all. From those beauties, Zhang Tai learned the name of the best jewelry store in Blackhot City, the name of the best underclothes store, the location of the best coffee bar, the best tailor's store, the best hair salon, and the best hotel, as well as how to make the most delicious chocolate, etc. The beauties in the Rose Association could easily tell the best places and the best items in Blackhot City as if they describing how much jewelry they had at home. Many of these beautiful girls were from common families like Zhang Tai. A few of them had slightly better family conditions, none of which could match that of Benet's family. Because of differences in family statuses, it was not possible for each of these girls to have a set of Miss Dis's underclothes, neither was it possible for each of them to have a set of jewelry from Milan Jewelry Store. To be able to wear a set of Miss Dis's underclothes and jewelry from Milan Jewelry Store while they were young and beautiful had become the dream of many girls of the Rose Association. For many people, such a dream was over superficial and utilitarian, however, Zhang Tai didn't think so. He just felt lucky that before leaving Blackhot City, he could do one more thing to make the adorable girls happy. This might be the last memory that he could leave them. There were no greeting cards in the gift boxes that he gave to Pandora, Alice, and Beverly, because Zhang Tai had carved all the words that he wanted to say on their finger rings. As nobody was at Alice's home, the gift carrier brought back the gift. If necessary, she would send it there again tomorrow. After doing all of these things, Zhang Tai felt absolutely relaxed. Before leaving Blackhot City, he had exerted all his effort to do everything he could do. Even if he was killed on the battlefield, he would not feel sorry for them all. He killed the one who deserved to be killed and appreciated the ones who deserved to be appreciated. Zhang Tai felt that he had loaded off a heavy burden. Under the dim roadside lamps, he walked through the streets, from the gate of 7th National Male Middle School all the way to the station where he had watched Miss Dana many times from afar. It was where Miss Dana always waited for the bus to go home every day. Previously, Zhang Tai could only hide in the alley behind the station to peep at her beautiful figure. He had already stealthily enjoyed her figure near this station for 3 years. Tonight, Zhang Tai bravely walked onto the platform for the first time, silently standing on that place where the beautiful figure always stood. It was already deep in the night, few pedestrians were on the streets. All the urban buses had stopped running. Nobody was in the station except for Zhang Tai. The dim road lamp near the station radiated a looming light in the dark, elongating Zhang Tai's shadow. It looked like a road that extended into the endless darkness. Standing on the platform alone, Zhang Tai closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He seemed to smell a wisp of the familiar fragrance left here while that beautiful figure got on the bus and left. Donder said that in this age, if a man wanted to be mature, he should have done 4 things: F*** get a prostitute, killed someone, was sent to prison, and became a soldier. In the past couple of months, Zhang Tai had experienced all of the above 4 things that Donder had mentioned. He was mature then now. And so he understood that lie which had brought him endless hope. My greatest wish is that one of my students will become a powerful fighter or a powerful man who can safeguard human beings. Then, I will well dress myself to marry him. The appointment between me and all of you is that when you are powerful enough to protect me, let me marry you, okay? Would you like to make this kind of agreement with me? The beautiful voice of yesterday's classroom was still drifting in Zhang Tai's ears, the agreement which had thrilled him so much. Not until this moment did he understand that it was the most beautiful lie that he had ever heard. Miss Dana was his teacher, the best teacher in his heart. She had her own life and would never belong to him. Neither would she marry him. Before Miss Dana, Zhang Tai was forever a student who could only silently follow her and hide in an alley beside the station to kiss her in his mind with his humble eyes. In this small station, that poor, small figure was sacrificed and buried forever. Zhang Tai didn't know how long he stood in that station. He did his best to recall everything he could about Miss Dana. Actually, he was so scared that after he left Black Hot City tomorrow, this would become his eternal farewell. He was afraid that one day he won't be able to remember that beautiful figure anymore. He was afraid that one day he would forget her looks. Maybe, on the day he left school, he should have collected his courage to take a photo with Miss Dana. Zhang Tai became a bit regretful inside. He wasn't certain from when there was already nobody on the streets. He wasn't certain from when the fine rain had become so heavy. He wasn't certain from when he was no longer alone in the station as Pandora was standing in front of him. Looking at her weak body and pale face that had been wetted by heavy rain, Zhang Tai felt pained. He then embraced her while taking off his military jacket. After cleaning the water off Pandora's head, he hurriedly put his jacket over her head before taking her icy hands and forcefully rubbing them. "How did you know I'm here?" he asked. Looking at Zhang Tai's nervous expression, Pandora chuckled. "You told me about what you always did previously, I guess you'd be here tonight. So here I am." Zhang Tai was slightly abashed, feeling like a kid who had been caught while stealing candy bars in a relative's home. He then pretended to glare at Pandora as he lifted her. "What about you? Why are you here alone then? It's so late." Revealing a smile to him, Pandora lifted her hand and took out that box which contained the ring. Although she had gotten soaked by the heavy rain, that box was still dry with not even a water drop on it. "I've just received your gift, learning that you'll need to leave Black Hot City tomorrow, so I want you to put this ring on for me." For some reason, at the sight of Pandora's smile, Zhang Tai felt like crying. He didn't say anything but instantly caught that box and took out that black ring. After that, he took hold of Pandora's hand that she stretched out before him. Pandora's right hand was tender and elegant. When she opened her palm, Zhang Tai wanted to put the ring onto her right hand's middle finger, but the moment he moved to do so, he saw Pandora shaking her head and stretching out her fourth finger. After that, she looked at Zhang Tai full of expectations, her eyes seeming to contain endless words. There was a great difference in meanings depending on which woman's finger the man put the ring on. Zhang Tai and Pandora gazed at each other, the whole world quieting down around them. Seeing Pandora's open snow-white fingers in front of him, Zhang Tai felt as if seeing Pandora lying on the bed and showing her open snow-white legs, waiting for him to crash inside. Identical to that day, at this moment, Pandora didn't say anything more. Instead, she just looked at Zhang Tai with a pair of shiny eyes which contained all words, both of encouragement and expectation. Whether Pandora opened her legs or palm in front of him, Zhang Tai felt that she was especially beautiful, which made his heart pound. "DVD." Zhang Tai solemnly promised Pandora. "I know." Pandora watched Zhang Tai with tears flowing out of her tears. "One day, I will die too. I just want to make an agreement with you while I'm still alive. When I'm as beautiful as Miss Dana, if you're still alive, can I take her place and marry you?" Zhang Tai immediately burst into tears. He pulled Pandora's hand toward himself and kissed it. After that, he put that ring onto fourth finger with great seriousness. Both of them then smiled. After that, they embraced tightly and began to crazily kiss each other in the silent station, trying to lick all the tears off the other's face. It kept raining for the first half of the night, and Zhang Tai hugged Pandora as they sat on the platform of the station. He told Miss Dana's story to her. Pandora also hugged Zhang Tai as she leaned against his chest with her head, listening seriously. At the second half of the night, the rain stopped. Zhang Tai then lifted Pandora up and brought her to his apartment. After that, they started to crazily make love without a stop. Chapter 205, Leaving Black Hot City. The next noon, in the railway station of Black Hot City, the military train that was going to leave had already blown its first whistle, which indicated urgency and that the train was about to set off. "Is everyone ready?" Lieutenant Colonel Reinhardt asked, looking out the carriage for the last time. By then, the last soldiers of Ironblood camp had jumped onto the train from the platform. Everybody is in. Major Guderian cleaned his glasses. Everybody and all the equipment is on the train. Besides one wounded soldier, everybody of Ironblood camp is already in. Fine, set off. Lieutenant Colonel Reinhardt ordered. At the same time, he thought back to Zhang Tai's young face and felt slightly regretful inside. After blowing the third whistle, the military train started to move slowly. What a pity. Major Guderian took off his golden frame glasses and slowly cleaned them with a piece of cloth. In the Ironblood camp as a whole, only Major Guderian and Lieutenant Colonel Reinhardt knew that Gregory family had given Zhang Tai a vial of advanced recovery medicament once he left the hospital. If Zhang Tai had used that vial of medicament, he should have been able to follow in the steps of the Ironblood camp. However, Zhang Tai was not here, therefore, Major Guderian let out a sigh. The carriage was filled with military officers of the Ironblood camp. For Guderian's slight sigh, nobody made any response, instead, they all kept quiet. Nothing to feel regretful about. This might be karma between people, as was said by Marshal Lin Chongjiang. Reinhardt stated, hitting the point. The train sped up. Right then, people in the carriage of military officers seemed to hear increasingly louder voices shouting, "Come on," from carriages that carried common soldiers behind them. Lieutenant Colonel Reinhardt and many military officers were curious, and they looked out the windows once again. Everybody saw an SUV rushing out of the tunnel near the platform. Soon, that SUV caught up with a carriage between the middle part and the end of the train. The soldiers of Ironblood camp in the carriage had opened the door and were shouting loudly to encourage the black-haired guy who was standing on the seat behind the driver. With a large military pack on his back, he was holding a huge sword. With the encouragements, that man first threw in his luggage into the carriage before following it with his terrifying sword, letting some soldiers hold it for a moment. Finally, he jumped out of the SUV like a fierce tiger and rolled into the train's carriage. Hit by this flesh bomb, several soldiers screamed miserably. Hearing the screams, all the soldiers who were encouraging him from the other carriages burst out laughing loudly. At the last minute, Zhang Tai had arrived. 5 minutes later, somewhat embarrassed, Zhang Tai appeared in the military officer's carriage where Lieutenant Colonel Reinhardt was in. "Boss, Zhang Tai, 2nd Lieutenant, platoon leader of 3rd Platoon, 5th Company has recovered. I'm requesting to return to my troop." Standing in front of Reinhardt, Zhang Tai gave a military salute to the boss of the Ironblood camp. Agreed. Reinhardt revealed a wisp of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Looking at this young man before him, he suddenly felt very happy. "Have you recovered?" "Yeah." Zhang Tai patted his chest. "It's already been a couple of days, but due to something, I've came back a few days later." "What thing?" Being a bit serious, Chief of Staff Guderian asked. "Chief of Staff, you know that I've just had the circumcision. I've held back for over 10 years and my girlfriends could not wait anymore. But it was not convenient to do that in the camp." Zhang Tai became a bit bashful. "Badass." After swearing at Zhang Tai, Major Guderian couldn't stop himself from laughing. Of course he knew how Zhang Tai had gotten his nickname, 2nd Lieutenant Mummy. At the same time, all the other military officers in the carriage burst out laughing as well. Zhang Tai then took a seat. As he saw Blackhawk City grow smaller, many thoughts flashed across his mind. At this time, at home, Alice was holding the delicate gift box packed in blue package paper, which was brought by Pandora and Beverly at Zhang Tai's request. She was looking at the two of them with a curious expression. "What's inside?" she asked Pandora. "Just open it." Pandora smiled, encouraging her. Alice then opened the outer blue gift box. Like all the other girls, the moment she saw the logos of Mrs. Dis and Milan as well as the flower, she also exclaimed. When these items were put together, every girl would like it. Alice then opened the two boxes inside. The bigger box contained a set of beautiful blue underclothes while the smaller box contained an expensive ring with a huge sapphire on it. During the past week, Alice was in a low mood. However, filled with such a great pleasure, she immediately burst into a smile which was as fresh as a flower. "Was it Zhang Tai who requested you to bring it here?" Alice's eyes were fixed on the two items in her hands, she loved them so much. Who else except him? Why didn't he come here himself? Face blushed, Alice put the set of blue underclothes close to herself and found it well matching. "That badass, lady killer, who only knows how to make girls happy. He didn't know how to face you, therefore he asked us to send it to you," Pandora calmly said. "Where's he?" Alice's movements became slightly stiff. "Went to Kalar. He should be on the military train by now. The Ironblood camp, which he's in, was dispatched to join the war between the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty in Kalar as the vanguard of No. 39 Division," Beverly said dejectedly. Alice's face immediately turned pale. "Did he say something for me before he left?" Alice's voice trembled slightly. He had carved what he wanted to say on your ring. Thinking of the words on that finger ring with a ruby on it that Zhang Tai had gifted her, Beverly started to drop off tears. So many people had sworn her as a bitch, male or female, however, only Zhang Tai knew she was as pure as ruby. With a good man like Zhang Tai, Beverly had been satisfied, no matter whether she could stay with Zhang Tai in the future. Wish you'll be happier than a C, Zhang Tai. Taking the ring, Alice finally saw such a line of words on its back. She thought she could see Zhang Tai smile again. That was a man who truly treated her well, a man who would be enraged at the sight of her being chased by a group of wild wolves, a man who would use his own body to shield her from a bolt at the most dangerous moment. When she dropped off tears before that man for the first time, that man controlled his greed at the most critical moment and silently put on his pants for her, leaving her her most precious thing. Alice had not imagined that it might be her last meeting with Zhang Tai. When he was going to leave, he had people send this ring full of bliss to her along with a set of suitable underclothes chosen by him. Alice then burst into tears, loudly, before rushing out of her home and running towards the railway station. She wanted to have a look at that man for the last time, however, she failed to catch up with that military train in the end. At this moment, in another place of Blackhot City, Barley, Hista, Doug, Baghdad, and Leet had taken out what Zhang Tai had left for them. That was a leather case containing 600 gold coins and Zhang Tai's letter to them. The letter read as follows. Brothers, I will set off for Kalar. You're my brothers. So are those brothers of the Ironblood camp. They were ready to sacrifice themselves for me, so I can only sacrifice myself for them. I don't want to make this like a will. But sometimes, I have to tell you the truth. Because I'm not God, there's also a chance for me to not come back. Additionally, the casualty rate of the Ironblood camp of number 39 division is the highest in the Ironhorn army. If I give each of you 100 gold coins just like that, I know none of you will take it just like Charwin. Because our friendship is worth more than this amount. Here, I want you to take them all. The reason is very simple. If I cannot come back, I just want to try my best to do something for my brothers. Why? Because the holy war between human beings and the demons will soon come. I was told this by the most reliable person when he left Blackhot City. I trust him. Maybe in the next few years, the situation of the entire Blacks and Human clan corridor will see a great change. Since Blackhot City won't be safe then, you should plan to leave here as soon as possible. If I had the ability, I would have done more for you, but please forgive me, I can only do this. This money will be my compensation for the amount of coins that I've plundered from you at the beginning. Previously, I had a lot of words to say, but I don't know how to say it all, so that's it. If I survive and come back to find that none of you received my good intentions, I will be very angry. I swear to beat the sh*t out of any who does that. Hista, you bastard should better not take this money for women. You should think more about how to escape together with your women. Doug, you don't look like that person who excels at making money or spending money. If you have trouble, don't forget to negotiate with Barley that bastard. He will not let you suffer a loss. Baghdad, when I left the Ironthorns Fighting Club, I told Manager Hans that if you would like to go there, they should arrange a very proper location for you, which is definitely better than being a serviceman in the fighting club where you are working at. Charwin, no matter what happens in the future, don't face it alone, remember that you've got so many good brothers. Barley, I know you cute fatty are the most righteous one. I'm very happy to be brothers with you. Well, that's all. Finally, I want to say, I've already done the circumcision and am not a virgin anymore. You'd better not be curious about the process since if you knew, you'd be very jealous of me. I don't want to wound your confidence as men and make you feel reluctant to raise up your head when you see me next time, ha, ha. Yours sincerely. Reading Zhang Tai's letter, the group was on the verge of tears, but by the end, they all burst out laughing. Zhang Tai, this bastard. When Doug wanted to cry, he couldn't stand but laugh, leaving a green snot bubble out on his nostril. Without thinking too much, he directly twitched it off and smeared it onto the clothes of a person beside him. He even cleaned his hand on that person's clothes. Not until they finished reading did Hista realize that Doug seemed to have rubbed on his clothes twice just now. What does that mean? Feeling something not right, he lowered his head, and then immediately jumped up. Doug, you bastard. What disgusting thing have you smeared on my clothes? I'll kill you, In the distance, the military train that contained all the soldiers and equipment of the Ironblood camp was driving towards the far-off south. Looking at the disappearing outline of Blackhot City in the horizon, Zhang Tai mumbled inside, "See you, Blackhot City." Chapter 206, Arrival at Kalar. After they set off from Blackhot City, they drove for 2 days until the military train carrying all the equipment and members of the Ironblood camp of number 39 division finally arrived at Kalar region on the third morning. Zhang Tai was woken up by a dream. From the moment he got onto the train, he had only done 3 things: first, sleep; second, kill wild beasts in the trouble reappearance situations; third, visualize 2 abacuses at the same time to practice mental arithmetic by abacus. Compared to those fragrant and adorable girls, it was really boring to stay with a lot of smelly old men on the train. The ruffians were playing cards with tobacco in their mouths. The violent maniacs who wanted to have a breakthrough in the iron blood fist skill were silently practicing the movements in the carriage. In contrast, most of the veterans had their eyes closed or were calmly polishing their weapons to prepare for the coming war. During the past day and 2 nights, the train only stopped 3 times in some small stations on the way so as to add coal and water, 1 hour each time. Being strictly disciplined, none of the soldiers and military officers took even half a step from the carriages. The carriages with common soldiers were filled with smoke while the carriage with military officers felt so still that they could not even break wind. Under this situation, Zhang Tai went to the sleeping compartment and threw himself onto the bed. With the exception of eating meals, he didn't come out at all. "Wake up, Second Lieutenant Zhang Tai, we've arrived at Kalar." Still in a sweet dream, Zhang Tai was rocked awake by a second lieutenant above him. Opening his eyes, he found that the train had already stopped. It was noisy outside. Pushing his head out the window, Zhang Tai looked outside and found that the day was about to break. The whole station was filled with people in dark red military uniforms and mountains of military items. Zhang Tai immediately got up and put on his clothes and shoes. After slightly grooming himself, he came to the canteen carriage, which was now the temporary conference room of Iron Blood Camp. When Zhang Tai came to the canteen, a military officer ranked first lieutenant who was not of the Iron Blood Camp was hurriedly leaving from the next carriage. In the next minute, the first military conference was held in the canteen carriage when Iron Blood Camp came to Kalar. A map of Kalar region was hung on the wall. The center of the map was a city, the south and north of which were occupied by obvious blue or red marks. Between the red and the blue plates, there was a huge gray region which just surrounded Kalar. Holding a command pen, Major Guderian was introducing the present situation about the regions surrounding Kalar in a very concise language. "Now, both our troops and the Brilliant Feathers are gathering in the Expanse region 50 kilometers away from Kalar. The city remains neutral. On its south, namely the blue region on the map, are the Brilliant Feathers, while on the north side, namely the red region on the map, is our Iron Horn army. The station we are in is 87 kilometers away from Kalar. We are here." Major Guderian pointed his command pen on a town called Karak in the frontier of the red region on the map. This narrow gray region surrounding Kalar on the map is 75 kilometers in length, 124 kilometers in width. It is the mountainous area of Kalar and where the most fierce fighting happens between our troops and the Brilliant Feathers. Now, many troops of both parties have been dispatched in this region. Encounters happen every day here. Just now, I've received an order from the division's headquarters that we have to be there as soon as possible and grab this area. We had another battalion there before, however, before last night, this troop had lost contact with its superior. Usually, this means that battalion's brothers all been lost. Guderian then drew a direct line from Karak to that place called Solonet in the Grey region. As they could all understood the contour line, they knew that Solonet was a town built on a half-hill. Guderian then drew lines and circles on the map using his command pen and told others what to do next. "Our first task is to grab this place again. Additionally, we have to continue to move for 2 weeks in this demanding region which covers at least 100 square kilometers and clean 3 enemy bases. In the next 2 weeks, we will give the biggest strike to the troops of Sun Dynasty in this region. In this task, we can only consume our own provisions and will get no relief. 14 days later, we can go back to the number 4 fighting castle of the Ironhorn army near Kalar to recondition. Any questions?" Everybody shook their heads, except Zhang Tai who felt his heart pounding as this was his first war. Unexpectedly, the moment they arrived at Kalar, without even sipping a mouthful of water, they were assigned with a task, leaving no time for a buffering at all. "Fine, the battle maps will be delivered to each company. If there are no problems, you have 5 minutes to prepare. After that, we should get off the train and assemble the teams to set out." All the military officers then suddenly stood up and went to deliver the task to their own companies. In the next 5 minutes, Zhang Tai put on that set of Sharp Arrow Type B Lieutenant Light Armor produced by the Norman Empire for the first time. Its alloy sheets could cover most of the key areas on his body. Besides putting on this set of armor and taking the same equipment and provisions as other military officers, Zhang Tai also brought a container of javelins that weighed over 100 kilograms and held that man's certificate in his hand. Not only military officers, even the common soldiers had completed all the pre-war preparations in the 5 minutes. Wartime was the right time to display the high efficiency of the Iron Blood camp. From the first soldier who received the order to open the door of a carriage and jumped off the train to all the 1,000-odd members of the Iron Blood camp, they all quietly assembled into teams in the railway station. All of this was finished in 2 minutes. At this time, the Iron Blood camp which had assembled before the war expedition was like a fierce beast which had finally revealed its killing nature. Everybody was holding their weapons and wearing armor. They all were quiet while a heavy killing chi rolled in their bodies. "Ah, Iron Blood camp, here's our Iron Blood camp." When the Iron Blood camp was assembling in the station, the soldiers and military officers of the Norman Empire in the station couldn't resist looking with amazement at this assembling ferocious troop. "Which division? I heard it's the Iron Blood camp of number 39 division." "Ah, is that the Iron Blood camp led by that mad Reinhardt?" someone exclaimed. "That's great, that Iron Blood camp will definitely give those bastards a fierce lesson." Someone became excited. Hearing the discussions, Zhang Tai learned that Boss Reinhardt was well known in the entire Iron Horn army. "Who's the guy holding that terrifying thing and carrying a pile of heavy javelins?" "I don't know, but he seems very sharp." Zhang Tai didn't imagine that by just standing among the soldiers he would attract the attention of many people. However, as it was his first time participating in a war, Zhang Tai only felt nervous inside, not feeling like showing off at all. Set off. Soon after Boss Reinhardt's roar, all the brothers of the Iron Blood camp started to move and trotted out of the station. The moment they left the station, Zhang Tai understood why they were ordered to walk toward Solonet. In this frontier town where they got off the train, almost half of the buildings were destroyed in the war. Broken tiles and walls could be seen everywhere. Buildings had been burnt to pieces while roads were seriously destroyed. As a result, the steaming armored vehicles that could only play their biggest role in plains and group assaults became useless in mountainous areas that surrounded Kala region. The town was covered with soldiers in dark red military uniforms of the Norman Empire. It was not strange for the 1,000-odd people of the Iron Blood camp which rushed out of the railway station. After the troop of the Iron Blood camp trotted away from the railway station, they soon ran out of the town and entered the wild in only several minutes. Solonet was at least 25 kilometers away from here. Only now Zhang Tai realized that it was very foolish to take this heavy sword as his main fighting weapon. That heavy sword along with the javelin container on his back, as well as some other equipment, made it that Zhang Tai carried half a ton of equipment with him. And all of that had to be carried while needing to run 25 kilometers before participating in a war. Even if Zhang Tai had 9 wolves' strength, he still felt a bit tired with this high intensity. After all, carrying loads was not Wild Wolf's advantage. However, at this time, Zhang Tai had to grit his teeth to stand it and collect his courage for himself. Before the troop entered the mountainous area, a cavalry riding iron horn beasts darted out from behind the troop and gave a metal cylinder that contained an order to Battalion Commander Reinhardt, who was at the front of the troop. After that, the cavalry rapidly rode away. According to the report of our scout brothers, those bastards of Sun Dynasty chopped off the heads of all of our battalion brothers in Solonet and piled them all on a granary's floor. Nobody survived, including the wounded and refugees. According to the latest order of the division's headquarters, also the latest task to us the Iron Blood camp, we will kill all the bastards of Sun Dynasty that are occupying Solonet. Do not let any one of them escape. Battalion Commander Reinhardt growled full of killing chi. Kill them all. Kill them all. Everybody's blood in the Iron Blood camp boiled. Chapter 207, The First Battle. To occupy Solonet and to kill all the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty in Solonet were two tasks with totally different difficulties. In the eyes of the decision-makers of the army, there was no question whether the Iron Blood camp of No. 39 Division could complete this task, or what price it would have to pay for achieving it. As a whole battalion of the Iron Horn army was killed by the troops of Sun Dynasty in Solonet, their heads chopped off and piled on to a granary's floor nearby, the Iron Horn army had to also chop off the heads of all the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty who occupied this area and pile them on a granary's floor. That was simple, no matter how many people would be sacrificed, they had to complete this task. Generally, rulers of the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty were wrestling hands in Kala region. It was displayed by conflicts between colonels and the close fights between numerous soldiers. This was the first time that all of the battalion soldiers of the Iron Horn army were killed by Sun Dynasty in the combat zone. To accomplish this deployment, the amount of soldiers that Sun Dynasty had to have used to surround and attack had to have been at least twice as large when compared to the Iron Horn army's strength. At this time, the advantage that the Sun Dynasty soldiers had by outnumbering the Norman Empire in Kala region started to be outstanding. Even if it was only a small-scale encounter or a skirmish between two battalions, the party with more soldiers could easily gain a small advantage and take the initiative. What happened in Solonet was just the epitome of the problem that the Norman Empire faced in Kala region. Therefore, the Ironblood camp had to fiercely beat up the soldiers of the Brilliant Feathers. This way, they had to boost the morale of the entire division. As annihilation was totally different from occupation, the fighting plan had to also be adjusted. Major Guderian decided to have the Ironblood camp attack from the south of Solonet instead of the north. After making a circle, the Ironblood camp would launch an attack from the back of its enemy to cut off the escape road for those bastards of the Sun Dynasty who occupied Solonet. This adjustment was simple, fierce, and decisive. Facing the attack from the south, the troops of Sun Dynasty in Solonet could only fight the Ironbloody camp desperately. There would be no chance for them to escape to the north. Because of terrain, they would also have a great difficulty in escaping to the east and the west. However, if this strategy was adopted, the Ironblood camp would also face a great threat. Once it entered a stalemate with the troops of the Sun Dynasty in Solonet, unable to kill those guys at once, if one more enemy troop showed up behind them, the Ironblood camp would be surrounded by its enemy and could only react passively. Of course, the appearance of the Ironblood camp in the south of Solonet would shock the enemy, however, at the same time, the Ironblood camp would put itself into the ring of encirclement which could be easily closed down by the enemy. This plan seemed a tad crazy because few commanders would jump into the enemy's ring of encirclement to fight, however, Battalion Commander Reinhardt was one of the crazy ones. The moment Major Guderian proposed it, Reinhardt immediately adopted it without a moment's hesitation. Because they had to take a detour, when the Ironblood camp arrived in its designated place, they had walked more than 10 km on mountainous road. Finally, when the first ray of sunshine cast onto Solonet at dawn, the 1,000-odd members of the Ironblood camp had already arrived at a place near a mountain slope to the north of Solonet and quietly lurked there. This place was less than 1 kilometer away from Solonet. After making a rapid march of over 30 kilometers, the Ironblood camp quietly lurked at the entrance of Solonet. They hid in an elm forest. Although they had over 1,000 people, they made no noise at all. Everybody half squatted on the ground, resting, drinking, and eating, so as to supplement physical strength as soon as possible. They had 20 minutes to recover their physical strength. Finally able to take a deep breath, Zhang Tai pulled out some dried meat from the inside of his coat and started to wolf it down. Meanwhile, with eyes open wide, he stared at the small village on the small hillside, which was Solonet. At this time, several wisps of heavy smoke rose up from that village, seeming like the final breaths of several buildings that had burned over the night and now were about to die. After occupying Solonet, the bastards of Sun Dynasty burned down several houses in the village in case of being raided in the evening, so the houses kept burning through the night like several huge flaming torches. By then, there were no local residents in Solonet anymore. Before the troops of both parties started to confront each other, the residents surrounding Kalar had escaped in all directions, whether to Kalar, to the south, or to the north. Nobody wanted to stay between the two armies. It was said that Kalar had already gathered hundreds of thousands of refugees. The small village was filled with moving soldiers of brilliant feathers who wore blue military uniforms. Many of them seemed to have just woken up as they were washing their faces at the riverside in the distance. Although having no fighting experience, Zhang Tai could estimate that there were around 2,500 to 3,000 soldiers of the Brilliant Feathers in Solonet. As there was only one main road leading to the village, the attack plan also became very simple. The Ironblood camp only needed to rush into the village up the main road and kill all the guys in blue military uniforms on the way. The key to this maneuver was speed. They had better not leave enough time for the troops of the Sun Dynasty to assemble. After eating 2 slices of dried meat and drinking 2 mouthfuls of water, Zhang Tai rested for 5 minutes. He felt that his physical strength was gradually recovering. They all didn't eat much, for if they did, it would influence the upcoming fight. The rapid march with half a ton's equipment was also an all-around test for Zhang Tai's physical strength. If there were 10 more km, Zhang Tai knew that he would really not be able to take it. With the half a ton's equipment, it was not funny at all. Thankfully, Solonet was in sight, and Zhang Tai let out a deep breath. Although this man's certificate was the #1 weapon for him to show off himself, in the battlefield, Zhang Tai felt it was like making a cocoon around himself. 2 weeks later, when the Ironblood camp was going to resupply itself, he considered changing his main fighting weapon. If he had to escape or make a long-distance raid, this heavy sword would really put a heavy load on him. Zhang Tai then made a decision inside. He felt this was the first law that he understood since he jumped off the train: never slap your face until it's swollen in an effort to look fat. If not, you will suffer a great loss. In less than 2 minutes after Zhang Tai made such a realization inside, he soon learned the second law: no one would wait until you've prepared well. The promised time for a rest before the attack was 20 minutes. However, less than 10 minutes after they started to rest, a team of soldiers rushed out of the village towards this area where the Ironblood camp had hidden itself. About 50 to 600 people were moving towards them. Of course, they did this not because they had discovered the Ironblood camp lurking but because they were ready to leave Solonet. When Zhang Tai thought that Reinhardt would let these soldiers leave in case of exposing their camp to the greater troop of Sun Dynasty, Reinhardt delivered his order: prepare for battle, kill them all. Because the division's headquarters order was to kill all the bastards of the Sun Dynasty that had occupied Solonet, Battalion Commander Reinhardt didn't plan to let any of them leave alive. After receiving the order, the two company's brothers that had been equipped with light crossbows silently moved to both sides of the mountain path with their bolts notched and their narrowed eyes on the team of soldiers and horses. Because this was Zhang Tai's first battle, he became a bit nervous and forcefully swallowed his saliva twice. At this time, a powerful hand fell on Zhang Tai's shoulder. He turned to see Frio half squatting behind him. When the battle breaks out, all the brothers of 3rd Platoon will follow you and you just follow me. Don't be afraid. Zhang Tai nodded. The team of soldiers and horses kept marching on, swiftly shortening that distance of 1 kilometer between them and Zhang Tai. They were really a team of soldiers of the brilliant feathers. At the front rode the cavalry, holding wing-like banners. Armored soldiers came after with weapons in hand, 4 people per row. Lastly were another batch of riders like those at the front, however these wore relatively more brilliant armor. They looked like the military officers of this troop. The army of the Sun Dynasty took 300 as a unit while the army of Norman Empire took 5 as a unit. The two troops were different in many aspects. The 500 to 600 soldiers and horses might be a battalion of brilliant feathers. The team of soldiers had not imagined that they would be ambushed not long after leaving Solonet. When bolts were shot from the elm forest on both sides of the road, instantly, half the soldiers were wounded, causing howls and cries to rise up in an instant. Kill them all. Battalion Commander Reinhardt was the first to rush out of the elm forest like a fierce tiger. With only one fist, he punched a cavalryman who had been left unstable by his flurried horse into flesh and iron pieces, and sent him flying back through the air, causing a great amount of soldiers of the Sun Dynasty to fall to the ground. The soldiers of the Ironblood camp all jumped out of the elm forest like fierce tigers and instantly cut the team of 500 to 600 people into several sections. The main fighting weapons of 1st Lieutenant Frio were 2 huge double-bladed axes which were like wheels. When the robust, tough, bald man wove his huge axes, he looked like a humanoid meat grinder which would grind all the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty once he touched them. In the timeframe of a wink, 1st Lieutenant Frio had already torn open an over 10 long bloody path before Zhang Tai. Chapter 208, The Fight. In such a raid with absolute number advantage on his side, facing a team whose fighting force had been weakened by 1/3 by the first wave of bolts, the moment Zhang Tai rushed out of the elm forest together with his brothers, even before he had killed anyone, the war had almost come to an end. This was not a fight at all, it was more like a massacre. Noticing what was happening over here, the army of the Sun Dynasty stationed in Solonet had already blown the fighting horn in emergency. Soon after that, the entire Solonet started to boil with action. Kill them. Hearing some soldiers of the Ironblood camp shouting loudly, Zhang Tai turned and looked at the distance. He then caught sight of 2 military officers at the end of the column. Realizing that they were in a bad scenario, the 2 military officers were forcefully striking their horses to escape towards Solonet. Some soldiers of the Ironblood camp were chasing after them. However, the distance between them was becoming greater. Some soldiers even raised their light crossbows and shot towards them, but the bolts crashed into the steel armor on their backs and just fell to the ground with a sound of ding-ding. As the horses were also wearing armor, due to the large distance, the light bolts could not even wound them. In a blink of an eye, the 2 military officers of the Sun Dynasty were over 100 steps ahead of everyone. Even Battalion Commander Reinhardt could not deal with them. When everybody thought that the 2 fish were going to escape after all, Zhang Tai showed off. Since he had joined the Ironblood camp till now, this was the first time for all the members to witness how this legendary 2nd Lieutenant Mummy launched an attack. A spear shadow flashed across the other's eyes. Almost at the same time, a military officer of the Sun Dynasty who was 100 steps away made a shrill shriek. Even if he was wearing a set of thick steel armor, he was still penetrated through by a heavy javelin. As a result, he immediately fell off the horse. Hearing his shrill shriek, the other man in front of him was shocked. He then looked back while another javelin descended upon him from the sky. Without even a groan, his whole body was penetrated through by Zhang Tai's missile and he fell off the horse too. Yeah! All the soldiers of the Ironblood camp boomed, immediately raising the morale once again. Kill them all. After a growl, everybody rushed into Solonet, which was less than 0.5 kilometers away. After making meritorious deeds in the battlefield for the first time, Zhang Tai's blood started boiling. Seeing Battalion Commander Reinhardt and other military officers rushing to the front of the soldiers, Zhang Tai also collected his courage. After shouting, "Kill them all," he pulled out his 300-odd kgs fighting sword while still carrying his container which lacked 2 javelins on the back, and rushed towards Solonet together with the rest of the camp. The military troops of Brilliant Feathers also responded very fast. The moment the more than 1,000 people and horses of the Ironblood camp rushed into the village, more than 1,000 people had been already assembled inside. The opponent commander also led the 1,000-odd people to rush out, aiming to have a fierce clash with the Ironblood camp. At this moment, only the assembled troops could use their biggest fighting force. As the opponent commander also knew this principle, the moment the Ironblood camp rushed inside, he had already seen clearly the number of soldiers and horses of the Ironblood camp. This number was a bit higher than the one they had eliminated yesterday. But the moment he managed to assemble the troops of Brilliant Feathers in this village, he would outnumber the Norman Empire. Even if his side was raided, the opponent commander still had the confidence to be the last one smiling. The opponent commander's confidence was turned panic-stricken when he saw the huge and bloody battle chi totem behind Battalion Commander Reinhardt when the two troops were about to crash into each other. This was also Zhang Tai's first time seeing Reinhardt's battle chi totem. It was a bloody python which was spreading hell-like flames all over the place. Generally speaking, after a person entered LV6 and became a fighter, others could know his personal fighting strength and level only from his battle chi totem. LV6 fighters had a black spider, LV7 fighters a centipede, LV8 fighters a python, while LV9 fighters had a bloody scorpion. These battle chi totems were the symbols of fighters' fighting strength and level in the human world. Zhang Tai had seen battle chi totems many times. He firstly saw that on Captain Kurlin's body. Recently, he had also seen Glaze's dead dad's battle chi totem. Although the two totems had different patterns, they were of the same color, black. In Blackhot City, Zhang Tai hadn't seen any battle chi totem of another color. This was so until he saw Reinhardt's. Reinhardt's battle chi totem was not only as fresh as blood, but also looked pretty commanding. Additionally, that huge python was spreading flames in all directions. This was the most direct manifestation of Ironblood battle chi. Besides the totem changing from black of common battle chi to red, the whole totem was spreading rolling flames like those of hell. This was definitely the exclusive symbol of Ironblood battle chi. A troop of about 1,000 people led by a person who had formed the Ironblood battle chi was definitely the brand troop of Norman Empire's division. The opponent commander finally understood whom he was facing. He also responded at once. Therefore, when Reinhardt burst out his flaming Ironblood battle chi totem, a huge and icy blue bloody scorpion battle chi totem also erupted almost at the same time, which was also not a common battle chi. Soon after that, a great amount of battle chi totems rose up from behind, big and small. All of them were black or gray, so in the whole battlefield, the most attractive battle chi totems were that bloody flaring python and that huge icy blue bloody scorpion. There were a bit more totems in the Sun Dynasty's troop than in the Norman Empire's one. At the sight of that huge icy blue scorpion, Reinhardt seemed to come to a realization why that battalion of the Norman Empire was annihilated by the opponents. Icy blue battle chi totems were the result after those bastards of the Sun Dynasty had formed their sky battle chi, which was the best battle chi in their country. Therefore, the leader of the Brilliant Feathers of Sun Dynasty was not a commoner either. The icy blue bloody scorpion and the flaring python immediately sped up and left their own troops. Before the rest of their troops crashed against each other, they made a fierce crash first. Boom! A huge crack sped forth from where the two met like trains smashing into each other after reaching the highest speed, exploding a big pit with the diameter of more than 2 m on the grassland under their feet. At the same time, Zhang Tai felt a fierce wind blowing towards him. He felt the land under his feet shudder twice and saw two figures fly back bleeding through the air. When the two landed, they charged at the opponents and crashed for the second time. Kill them all. The two troops were all in a rage now, eyes red. When they were over 50 m away from each other, Zhang Tai launched his attack. The javelins in the container on his back appeared in his hand one by one and were thrown out. Almost at the same time, 7 military officers of the Sun Dynasty who had burst out battle chi totems and were rushing ahead were struck by Zhang Tai. 5 of them had black spider totems while the other 2 had centipede totems. Zhang Tai moved too quickly but his throwing speed was faster. For the LV6 or LV7 guys, their eyes couldn't even catch the javelins that flew towards them. Their movement could not match the speed of flying javelins at all. Therefore, they were all shot to death immediately. Some javelins could even penetrate 2 people at once. Seeing this, the Ironblood camp's morale rose up once again. In contrast, the morale of the opponent became lower. Before the two troops crashed, Zhang Tai had already cleared his container by killing 7 enemy military officers. He then undid the javelin container and threw it onto the ground. "That's better," he mumbled inside. After relieving the over 100 kilograms burden, Zhang Tai became more agile immediately. The two troops, totaling more than 2,000 people, immediately crashed into each other on a patch of grassland at the hillside. In a split second, numerous sounds of blades clashing against each other and cutting into human flesh resounded. "Kill him." A black spider-man of Sun Dynasty who had set his hatred-filled sight on Zhang Tai rushed towards him. Without hesitation, he quickly raised his broad sword and chopped at his victim's head. However, he seemed to have not noticed that man's certificate behind Zhang Tai. F***CKU. Zhang Tai's eyes also turned red. With two hands on the handle, he immediately picked up his huge sword from the ground and sliced towards that man with a black spider totem. Based on facts, before man's certificate in Zhang Tai's hand, few weapons deserved the descriptive word huge. That thing in his hand was simply an over 2 m long huge guillotine used to cut fodder in the barn. With the strength of 9 wild wolves' 7 strength fruits, Zhang Tai exploded with amazing strength. In a split second, the broadsword in that man's hand broke into two halves like a chopstick forcefully broken when it smashed against the guillotine, instead of being slowly cut off like fodder in the barn. After that, Zhang Tai's huge sword smoothly sketched through the part above that man's waist. The man then instantly became two halves. From the time he killed this man, Zhang Tai calmed down inside as he immediately entered the absolutely calm and shrewd state, like that of a spectator. He then hefted up his huge sword. With a simple horizontal sweep, 6 grim soldiers rushing towards him in a fan-like formation more than 2 m away from him instantly froze. At the same time, 6 blood columns sprouted upward out of their waists right in front of Zhang Tai when their upper bodies slid off. At the sight of this scene, not only the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty, even the soldiers of the Ironblood camp behind Zhang Tai became scared. The power of this man's certificate in the hands of 2nd Lieutenant Mummy was too terrifying. Chapter 209, I am shameless. At some point, neither the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty nor those of the Ironblood camp dared to be close to a 2 m circle around Zhang Tai. The fight kept going. After the aborted raid, the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty who rushed out of Solonet in teams continued to join the battle. Zhang Tai was still trying his best to kill his enemies while the battle between the man with a battle chi totem of flaring python and the man with a battle chi totem of icy blue scorpion continued. That was the collision between a LV-8 fighter's Ironblood battle chi and a LV-9 fighter's sky battle chi. Compared to Zhang Tai, that collision scared off any other persons in a circle of 10 m. After each fierce clash, Reinhardt would growl because of inexhaustible excitement. On this battlefield, Reinhardt's growls could completely overshadow others' battle cries. One more. One more. One more. The whole battlefield echoed with Battalion Commander Reinhardt's lion-like growls. Hearing such growls, all the soldiers of the Ironblood camp gained strength while the faces of the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty started to turn pale. By now, needless to say, the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty already knew what kind of troop they were facing. This troop was more than twice as powerful as the one they had annihilated. Most of the soldiers in common battalions were LV-1 LV-5 warriors, but in the Ironblood camp, the soldiers were at least LV-3 veterans. This was a very sharp difference in fighting force. Some more spears thrust towards Zhang Tai. He swept his huge sword once again, breaking several spears at once. Before the flustered soldiers could move backwards, Zhang Tai rushed forward and swept at them with his huge sword. The 4 soldiers of the Sun Dynasty in front of him immediately spurted blood from their waists and fell to the ground. Zhang Tai himself didn't know how many times he'd swung his huge sword, but slowly he started to change his fighting tactic in his mind. Although it was cool to slash the enemies into 2 halves, that required greater strength to break armor. However, usually, based on the size and sharpness of the huge sword's blade, once someone got hit by it, a 3.5 cm to 5 cm deep wound would be fatal enough. As long as this wound was made by the huge sword, it would be very long. Once such a wound was made on any part of a person's upper body, it would be fatal, regardless of being horizontal or vertical. It was wasteful to slash a person into 2 halves. Only 1/5-1/3 of the strength that he used to slash a person in 2 was already enough to kill an enemy. After changing, Zhang Tai changed his fighting tactic. Few people could be seen being slashed into 2 in front of him. However, his fighting efficiency accelerated with less strength used up. As Zhang Tai had not learned any sword skills, he just instinctively used that huge sword as the extension of his palm. He kept waving it like using the movement sword palm in the freehand movements of Ironblood fist skill. Besides having the super great endurance of wild wolves to run, Zhang Tai also had the wild wolves' endurance to fight. It was hard to say whether it was because of his increased spiritual energy, but Zhang Tai felt that the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty didn't move fast enough. He could clearly see the movement trajectory of their weapons. When facing them, Zhang Tai had enough time to consider his response, whether to hold back, counterattack, or jump away. Previously, he didn't feel this way, but for some reason it became obvious in the battlefield. These soldiers had greater speed and strength than Glaze. They were more experienced in fighting. However, in Zhang Tai's mind, these soldiers were not as shocking as Glaze to him in the training ground at school. He didn't know that in the whole battlefield, with the exception of Reinhardt, his performance was almost the best. Young age, handsome figure, huge fighting sword, terrifying strength, fierce and sharp fighting skills as well as amazing javelin throwing skills, all these features easily made him eye-catching. He was like a rainbow after rain. When Zhang Tai killed another man with a battle chi totem of black spider and 3 common soldiers in front of him, a tall figure appeared before him. It was a military officer of Sun Dynasty taller than 2m. He was as strong as an iron tower and held a mace whose spikes resembled wolf's fangs and whose rod was as high as he was tall, while the battle chi totem of centipede was rolling behind him, revealing him as a LV-7 fighter. This man was covered in fresh blood, while that terrifying mace in his hand was almost wholly painted in red, pieces of flesh hanging off it. Needless to say, all that was from the soldiers of the Norman Empire. The huge sword and the wolf-fanged mace then collided against each other. After grunting, they both moved backwards. "You'll be the 116th red-hide dog of the Norman Empire that died under my wolf-fanged mace. I will enjoy peeling off your hides and burying you into the soil. After that, I will smash your heads into pieces like how I hit tomatoes on the ground when I was young." Saying that, the terrifying tough man licked the blood off that horrible wolf-fanged mace. "Do you want to match strength with me? You fat freak, I'm the king of strength." Zhang Tai became infuriated. "Come here then, the one who drops his weapon first will be the real idiot." Zhang Tai rushed forward. Hefting his huge sword, he slashed towards the giant's head. At the sight of this, the giant revealed a grim smile. With a growl, he also wove his wolf-fanged mace to collide with Zhang Tai's huge sword. Once, twice, thrice, 10 times. The sound produced by the collision of the 2 heavy weapons rocked the whole battlefield. This was Zhang Tai's first time seeing such a guy who was born with great strength that could match his own. The battle chi this man practiced seemed to also be able to greatly improve his strength. This guy was really tricky. After colliding with his opponent numerous times, Zhang Tai pretended to spit out blood while gritting his teeth to continue fighting the giant. Besides strength, this terrifying giant had fighting skills that were no worse than those of Zhang Tai. Seeing Zhang Tai becoming a bit weaker but still striving to fight him, the giant looked grimmer. Finally, when the iron tower-like giant was slashing down with his wolf-fanged mace towards the huge sword, he found that the huge sword had already left Zhang Tai's hand. As a result, the great weapon was sent flying far away by the wind produced by the giant's wolf-fanged mace's swing. But before the giant could become excited, Zhang Tai punched his waist with a move from the iron blood fists. The moment the giant sent the huge sword flying backwards, the iron blood-hidden strength immediately exploded in his body. Almost in a second, Zhang Tai punched over 10 fists onto this giant using his iron blood-hidden strength. Face turning pale, the giant felt his hands losing strength. The moment the wolf-fanged mace dropped to the ground, he spurted a mouthful of fresh blood, like a high-pressure water pipe. The giant immediately knelt on the ground. He glared at Zhang Tai, but the moment the iron blood-hidden strength exploded in his body, his eyes turned red like those of a rabbit. Fresh blood flowing from his mouth corner, the giant seemed to want to say something. "I know what you want to say. Well, I'm shameless, I'm the idiot." While still talking, Zhang Tai swiftly pulled out a dagger from his waist and thrust it in the giant's neck without any hesitation, then forcefully rotated it. The giant unwillingly fell down with his eyes wide open. Zhang Tai then ferociously spat a mouthful of bloody saliva onto him. "Idiot. I've not played this trick with my pals, like throwing a ball to attract a puppy, since I was 7 years old." It was Zhang Tai's first time to encounter such a man born with great strength, which was even greater than that granted by the 9 wild wolf 7 strength fruit. But this time, Zhang Tai concluded that those who were smarter than him could not match his strength, while those who had greater strength than him could not match his intelligence. After training this giant to get used to clashing against his huge sword, Zhang Tai only played a small trick to solve this tricky opponent. Due to his great spiritual energy, Zhang Tai felt a sudden threat. He then slightly leaned to his side to avoid a spear which was thrust at his back. He grabbed it so fast, making a sound of "so," that the guy who wanted to ambush him couldn't even keep his balance as he tumbled forward, towards Zhang Tai. Zhang Tai then kicked at him, his attack imbued with the iron blood-hidden strength, sending that person flying 10 m away. After that, he held the spear and gave a sweep, slashing another opponent away. He then threw the spear, penetrating through some guy who had intended to assault the awkward tall man Beckham from the back. After doing all that, Zhang Tai picked up that great wolf-fanged mace, which weighed almost the same as his own huge sword. He then glanced over the surrounding soldiers of the Sun Dynasty. At the sight of Zhang Tai rushing towards them with the giant's wolf-fanged mace, all of their faces turned pale and they immediately turned back and escaped. This time, Battalion Commander Reinhardt also took the wind. Hearing Reinhardt's growl "Go to hell," Zhang Tai turned and saw Battalion Commander Reinhardt's iron-blood fist breaking through the defense of the man with the battle chi totem of an icy blue bloody scorpion and landing directly on his head. In a split second, colorful brains and guts exploded out of his head and body. Seeing this scene, everybody in the Iron-Blood camp became highly spirited. However, at the sight of this, even more soldiers of the Sun Dynasty started to turn and run. Many of them didn't even care where they were going. They only wanted to stay as far away as possible from these gods of killing from Iron-Blood camp. "Kill them all," the brothers of the Iron-Blood camp exclaimed and chased after them. 10 minutes later, the established resistance of the Brilliant Feathers army of the Sun Dynasty in Solonet didn't exist anymore. All the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty started to run. Like chasing after rabbits, the Iron-Blood camp spread a net from the south to the north and started to chase after those soldiers who only thought about escape through the main roads of Solonet. The entire village resounded with the shrill shrieks of the soldiers of the Sun Dynasty and the sounds blades slashed people's necks. Under the leadership of Battalion Commander Reinhardt, some people and horses of the Iron-Blood camp moved out at a speed faster than the fleeing soldiers could escape in. After that, he led his troop back in an ever-closing net. The Iron-Blood camp had surrounded the whole Solonet. "Kill them all. Take revenge for our brothers." Reinhardt's emotionless order drifted across the village. In a split second, the whole Solonet was covered with human heads rolling on the ground. Chapter 210, Mewling. Wandering through the streets of Solonet, Zhang Tai could see bodies lying everywhere. Gradually, his discomfort became numbness. Some bodies and blood stains were there from yesterday, some from today. They belonged to the soldiers of Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty both. Soldiers of the Iron-Blood camp who now occupied Solonet were picking corpses. All those belonging to Sun Dynasty soldiers would be pulled out. Their heads would be chopped off and piled on the drying field. In contrast, when the corpses of the Norman Empire were found, they would be gathered and buried together. This was a job full of pain and hatred. Everybody was doing it in silence. Casually, at the sight of some groaning soldiers of the Sun Dynasty, the soldiers of the Iron-Blood camp gave them another slash to the throats to end their pains. Donder had said that there were no righteous wars between countries. At the sight of those soldiers of Sun Dynasty whose heads were being chopped off, Zhang Tai realized that some of them were only a couple of years older than him. This made him a bit uncomfortable. These people, Zhang Tai didn't hate them at all. However, born in this age, when you ended up in a situation like this, you had to fight for your own lord. On the battlefield, you could only wish to survive yourself and not see those familiar to you die. Maybe the one who really deserved death was that bastard who had given the order to chop off the heads of all the soldiers of the Norman Empire. The arrival of Iron-Blood camp and what its soldiers were doing were just revenge. On this topic, the Norman Empire had only one principle: to take revenge many times greater. If the heads of 1,000 soldiers of the Norman Empire were chopped off and piled up for display, then at least 2,000 heads of the soldiers of the opponent had to be chopped off and piled up. That was how the Norman Empire dealt with it. Iron-Blood camp was a troop which existed for such fights and destruction. The small Solonet was filled with the smell of blood. That bastard of Sun Dynasty who had delivered the order to chop off the heads of all the soldiers of the Norman Empire yesterday is caught. A soldier of Iron-Blood camp ran towards Zhang Tai while shouting loudly. Hearing this news, Zhang Tai decided to have a look at how a bastard like that could look like. For because of that bastard's order, over 3,000 people had died in Solonet in 2 days. The most bloody area in this village was that drying field, which had been used by the villagers to dry wheats under the sun during harvest. The rest of the time, it acted as the town square for the villagers to amuse themselves. The drying field was located in the center of the village, which was a vacant land covering over 3,000 square meters. Beside it was a spiked bell tower dark red in color and a church that nobody knew which cult it belonged to. That guy who had given the order to chop off the heads of all the soldiers of the Norman Empire yesterday was finally found in the basement of that church. After surrounding Solonet, the Iron-Blood camp figured out what had happened yesterday from some captives. After confirming that they were telling the same, the Iron-Blood camp killed those poor guys and searched the whole Solonet until they finally found that bastard. At this moment, several piles of heads were erected on the drying field, which were even greatly higher than the straw piles nearby. At the sight of them, timid people might be so scared they would pass out. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I'm the most pious servant of the God of Brilliance. If you kill me, the God of Brilliance will punish you, arg." The moment Zhang Tai came to the drying field, he heard a hysterical shrill shriek which was definitely 100 times more nasty than that of the most nasty quacks of ducks that Zhang Tai had ever heard. Along with the man's loud scream came his miserable howls, for he was being beaten up. The drawing field was surrounded by many soldiers of the Iron Blood camp, including most of the military officers present. At the sight of Zhang Tai, all the soldiers in the outer ring of the circle willingly made a path for him to walk inside. In the fierce fight just now, Zhang Tai had used his real strength to gain the approval and respect of all the soldiers of the Iron Blood camp. Although the final results were not counted, everybody understood that this youngest second lieutenant mummy of No. 39 Division had killed almost a platoon's worth of soldiers of the Sun Dynasty, which included at least 10 LV-6 LV-7 military officers. Undoubtedly, Zhang Tai deserved the title of the person who had killed most military officers of brilliant feathers in the battle today. His excellent javelin skills deserved the 2 words, amazingly excellent, not only in the Iron Blood camp, but even in the entire Iron Horn army. As long as Second Lieutenant Mummy's javelin was thrown out, no one below LV-7 within 100 steps of him could escape. Besides, the fight between Zhang Tai and that tricky LV-7 giant was witnessed by many people. If it was a bit opportunistic to use his javelin throwing skills, the face-to-face fight between him and that giant using a 200 to 300 kilograms wolf-fanged mace could display Zhang Tai's real force. In this duel, Zhang Tai not only presented his great strength and fighting skills, but also his intelligence. Before fighting Zhang Tai, that giant using wolf-fang mace had already killed a 2-digit number of soldiers of the Iron Blood camp. Seeing Zhang Tai killing him face-to-face, nobody felt that Zhang Tai was an idiot. All the soldiers of the Iron Blood camp regarded him as a hero. Even if having formed the Iron Blood hidden strength, it was still rare to see a LV-4 warrior killing a powerful LV-7 opponent in the whole history of Iron Blood camp. When a person reached LV-4, he had only ignited the 7 burning point on his spine. If one added that shrine burning point, he would still have just ignited 8 burning points. However, a LV-7 fighter had already ignited 34 burning points on his spine, plus the shrine burning point, totaling in 14 burning points. The two had 3 level and 10 ignited burning point difference. So seeing Zhang Tai kill that guy despite all of that, everybody felt that Colonel Leibniz had really fetched a treasure for Iron Blood camp from Blackhot City. Such a guy would have a super high possibility to form Iron Blood battle chi. Great Battle God would definitely care about him a lot. The moment Zhang Tai entered the circle, he saw a military officer kicking a flesh ball towards him. The rolling guy wore a noble's blue silk robe and a golden waistband. Being kicked so fiercely, that flesh ball shrieked loudly. "I protest. I request for the treatment of captives in human wars as is regulated in the brilliant Magna Carta." Watching that man who was embarrassing as a pig with fat-filled brains and intestines, Zhang Tai believed that even Donder would be 100 times more handsome than he was. Yesterday, this guy had delivered the order to chop off the heads of all the soldiers of the Norman Empire, including those of wounded soldiers and captives, and pile them on the drying field. Did he give the order? Zhang Tai asked First Lieutenant Lu Xing near him, who was the military officer of 3rd Company of the Iron Blood camp and another Chinese military officer. Since Zhang Tai entered the Iron Blood camp, First Lieutenant Lu Xing had already expressed his favorable impression and concerns about him. "That's him, this one is Muling of the Brilliant Feathers." First Lieutenant Lu Xing revealed a resentful expression. "Muling, 1? Is that a shepherd and guide or what?" Hearing this weird title, Zhang Tai became slightly dumbfounded as he started to guess the job of the Muling of Sun Dynasty. The weird title Muling was definitely unique to Sun Dynasty. Although there were many countries that unified state with church and blacks in human clan corridor, only Sun Dynasty had such a bizarre profession, namely the priesthood of the brilliant god cult and the secular official position of the regime. People with this position always had 2 roles, the first was a hard-ass priest, and the other an officer. In the Sun Dynasty, the title Muling spread everywhere through the country, including schools, factories, military troops, urban and rural areas, and mines. Every place with people would be matched with someone having this title. These Mulings were like disgusting tentacles of an octopus which could tightly grab the whole Sun Dynasty, leaving nothing behind. When a Muling wants you to confess to him on behalf of the brilliant god, he actually wants your soul. When a Muling cares about your work, he wants your purse. This was a proverb that had widely spread through the entire Andaman alliance about the Mulings of the Sun Dynasty. In the entire blacks and human clan corridor, the most disgusting thing about the brilliant god cult was that no matter where the Mulings of brilliant god existed, they would only do 2 things: turn others' belongings into those of brilliant god, and turn the belongings of brilliant god into their own. Norman Empire was a country with a very open religious policy. Besides the battle god cult, this country also allowed its citizens to have other beliefs, except for the brilliant god cult. Because in the Norman Empire, the brilliant god cult was defined as a heresy. Any practitioner of this religion would be killed along with all the members of his family. In the history of the Norman Empire, after being bewitched by some mulings, some believers of the brilliant god cult had once broken out into riots in several cities and established a temporary regime. From then on, the relationship between Sun Dynasty and Norman Empire became very tense. Anyway, everywhere in Sun Dynasty, these mulings were people with supreme authority. Even Zhang Tai had not imagined that he could see one of the most notorious worms of the Sun Dynasty in a small area like Solonet. The meatball was a 4-star muling, the 4 stars embroidered on his long robe, which was not a low rank among established mulings.